Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So this is a little bit different. This is an idea that I've had in my head for a while now, and I'm so excited to bring you guys this video because today we are going to be talking about the very best MVP TV show characters. Now, each and every one of these characters that I'm going to list in this video, I believe make the show. They are true MVPs in that without these characters, I would stop watching the show, one, and two, I genuinely think that the show just wouldn't be as good. And a lot of the times, these are really good shows that we're going to be talking about here. But these characters just take them up a notch. They elevate these TV shows, and as a result, I think they are truly MVPs. They are carrying the weight of this show on their shoulders, and I think they do a good job doing so. So I wanted to give them the praise. I wanted to give them their flowers in this video. Now, for disclosure, I can only talk about the TV shows that I have watched, so there may be some MVP TV show characters that you would like to spotlight, and if that is the case, then you can write them down in the comments below, and you can let me know your thoughts on the characters that I spotlight in this video as well. And for disclosure, there might be some spoilers when it comes to these TV shows, but before we get into this video, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already so that you can catch brand new uploads. Okay, without further ado, let's get into my list of 10 MVP TV show characters. This list is in no particular order, and the first character that I would like to highlight is in honor of the brand new interactive special that Netflix released this very week, where we get a chance to see this character on a brand new journey after the series officially ended last year in the season finale. That is, of course, the character of Titus from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Now listen, I love Kimmy Schmidt, the character, and also the show as a whole. I think the show is hilarious, and I also think it's very clever in the way that it's able to insert tidbits of social commentary amongst the insanity that is the premise of this show. Now, this show technically revolves around the character of Kimmy, who is trying to find her way in life. She's trying to create a brand new life for herself in New York after escaping the evil clutches of the Reverend, who kidnapped her when she was a teenager and held her in this bunker with a few other girls who were trapped there for years. And so she is underdeveloped mentally and also socially, and she's trying to manage her way through finding this new adult life, and it's a really interesting journey that she goes on. You should definitely check out the show if you haven't already, but if you have, you'll know that whilst the story revolves around Kimmy, technically the real shining star here is Titus. Titus makes this show. He is gloriously camp. He does not care about what anyone thinks of him, although he does have layers in terms of his backstory and where he came from, and how he had to hide his true self, his true Titus self in the past, and he wouldn't let that happen anymore, which is why he's so embracing of who he is now. And that is the character that Kimmy manages to meet and make friends with, much to our benefit, because we get some amazing classic scenes from this character. Oh my god. First of all, the lemonading, mwah, comedic gold. When he was walking through the streets of New York in that yellow dress that was inspired by Beyonce's Lemonade, which was inspired by the mythology of Oshun, and it's just incredible. That character was elevated to legendary status because of the shenanigans that he got through when he was trying to get over Mikey. Titus Burgess exceeds in his portrayal of this character in the way that he's able to balance a character who is not the brightest bulb in the bunch, but at the same time has moments of true meaningfulness and insight that he can impart on Kimmy in her journey of becoming an adult, becoming a regular, normal human being. And he's also trying to find his own way to becoming a Broadway star, which leads him down some really dark Me Too avenues with some puppets. Listen, that whole sequence of events where he was Me Too'd by Sesame Street, I can't. Again, like, it's this balance of being so absurd and so hilarious, but at the same time really poignant and really important in its messaging. And the way that the actor is able to toe the line between these two dichotomies is so impressive, and it creates such an amazing, memorable, hilarious, unique, amazing character. I can't say enough good things about Titus. I really do think that he just makes the whole series shine. Speaking of characters who you're really here to see, my next character is the perfect example of this, because for my next pick I am choosing Villanelle from Killing Eve. There is no doubt in my mind that every single person who is watching Killing Eve is watching it in part at least just to see the insanely amazing portrayal of this complex, electrifying, charismatic character that Jodie Comer perfectly portrayed. When it comes to the character of Villanelle, she 100% makes this show. I have seen so many British dramas where you have characters like Eve, you have characters like Caroline. Yes, there are different variations of them, and this is not to take away from Sandra Oh's performance in the slightest, because I think she's great in this show. But the question I raise to you is, if it wasn't for Villanelle being so amazingly portrayed by Jodie Comer, would you tune into the show? For real. Be honest, because I don't know, in an inferior actress's hands, I don't know if I would connect with the character of Villanelle as much as I do right now. I think she is integral in the way that she is portrayed by Jodie. She is integral to the show working, and some of the best scenes that we get from the show are the ones that have Villanelle and Eve together, but some of the worst ones are the ones that we only see Eve in. Villanelle is scarcely the problem with this show. She is the driving force of the show, and that's what makes me kind of pick her when it comes to which character is more integral, because when it comes to Eve alone, it's just not as enjoyable. I'm sorry, it just isn't. There are so many more characters like her where she's, you know, working for the FBI, the CIA, MI6. You know, we've seen these types of characters before in a lot of these shows. But when it comes to the character of Villanelle, who is like her? Absolutely no one. She's unique. She stands in a league of her own, and she definitely elevates the show to a whole different level and makes it something that we are excited to talk about. And speaking of talking about it, I've been doing a lot of that throughout this whole season, so I'm not going to be discussing this character any longer. But if you would like to see more of my thoughts on Villanelle as well as Killing Eve in general, check out my reviews. They're on my channel right now. Next up, this is going to be a relatively quick one, but I'm going to talk about a show that I'm not actually the biggest fan of, but I just keep watching because I'm here now, so I might as well. But I must admit, without this character, this show would just fall to pieces. No question. If this character left the show, I'm done. I'm finished. In fact, go ahead. Please, I dare you to get rid of this character, because then I can be free of this show. And the show that I'm talking about is Good Girls, and the character that I'm talking about is Rio. You know how we were just talking about the electrifying on-screen chemistry between Villanelle and Eve just now? Well, that's the same thing when it comes to Rio and Beth in Good Girls, because they are just incredible together. They are the reason why I keep watching this show. But the reason why I would choose Rio as the character that is the true MVP for this show is because without him, I really don't care about Beth. I don't care about her interactions with her friends and her sister. I don't care about her family situation. Her family situation is so messed up to me. Like, that whole show, the whole premise of the show is so messed up to me, because we are supposed to feel so bad for these women who are going through these lengths in order to survive and in order to help their families and support their families. But they're living in these like huge mansions. And maybe it's because I'm British and like all of the houses in London here are tiny. In order to be able to afford that house, I don't even want to, let's not even bother going there. But essentially my issue with the show is that you have this middle class family masquerading as this impoverished, you know, group of people who are desperate and by any means necessary have to support their families and do these horrible crimes and have people killed and all sorts that happens throughout the show. And you're supposed to be like, you know, what's going on is messed up, but at the end of the day you have to do this because it's for your family. And instead I'm just like, no, you don't sell the house. It's huge. Why do you have such a massive house? You could find other ways to support your family other than getting involved with a gangster. But when said gangster is Rio, I don't mind as much because he is my favorite character of the whole show, even though he gets so little screen time. And that's the thing, the show is really walking on thin ice here because the character of Rio barely has any screen time whatsoever, despite the fact that he's the most interesting part of the show. And his relationship with Beth kind of goes in these circles where they don't really know how to get to the end point. I'm pretty sure they don't even know what the end point is between them because they can't feasibly be together. So we're getting these like recycled storylines when it comes to him and when it comes to his relationship relationship with Beth, and it will get old pretty soon. And like I said, the second that he is gone from this show, so am I. But until then, I will continue to enjoy the little screen time that we get of him, because I do not care about the main three characters of this show whatsoever. Okay, so when it comes to my next character, I'm a little bit conflicted because technically it's a tie, but I would say that my next MVP TV show character is Randall from This Is Us. Now, the person that he's technically tying with is of course Jack Pearson, who is the father figure of the whole Pearson clan, and he is this angelic being that kind of haunts the entire Pearson family, which is how amazing he was, and no one really can live up to that. So he is an incredible character, but I would say in terms of the living characters out of all of the siblings, Randall is definitely the most interesting. His storyline has gone through so much in comparison to everyone else. I mean, you have Kevin, who's just this immortal child. Like, he will not grow up. He is such a frustrating character to get on board with, because yes, they've given him alcoholism, but other than that, he has no real trials and tribulations when it comes to his life. Like, he's had everything handed to him. Even the impact of his father's death doesn't really seem to be as visceral as it does for Kate and for Randall, even though of course, like, he's hiding it behind his fame and his alcoholism. Like, I get it, but it's different, man. Like, I just can't connect to the character of Kevin, full stop. And in the case of Kate, yes, she did go through quite a bit in the previous season with her child being blind, but at the same time, like, other than the fact that she has a child now, there's nothing really happening in Kate's life. I guess that's a big change. I just don't care. The point is that Randall's storyline is the one that we care about the most. Like, he's gone through so much. He found his biological father, then he connected with him, and then he just died. And then he found out that his mother knew who he was all that time. And Beth is constantly expected to maintain the equilibrium when it comes to their family. She is the backbone of the family, and sometimes it's a bit too much pressure for her. And we see that she also has her own dreams that she would like to follow, but Randall's dreams always seem to come first. So that's a very interesting, like, storyline that they went through in the previous season as well. So I'll just keep this one short. In the case of Randall Pearson, he just outshines them all. Not to mention Sterling K. Brown. Like, he is next level. He is up there with Jodie Comer and Viola Davis and How to Get Away with Murder. Like, he is phenomenal as Randall Pearson. He has it down pat. And whilst the rest of the cast is great and they're more than able to hold their own, Sterling is just... there's a reason why he's holding an Emmy at the end of the day. Okay, so I have a few controversial ones sprinkled throughout this list. And one of them, I will make a case for it, okay? I'll make the argument and then you can be the judge. Baby Yoda from The Mandalore. Now look, I know that you might be thinking that I'm insane and that I don't know what I'm talking about, but just hear me out, okay? I loved Pedro Pascal as the Mandalorian in this show. I think he was fantastic. If that was even him in there, which there's no proof of that because he's literally wearing a helmet for like 99% of this performance. It could just be someone else, who knows? But assuming that it is Pedro Pascal, great job. Fantastic character, truly. But if I'm gonna be real, every single episode, I was looking forward to seeing one character and one character only, and that is Baby Yoda. This puppet / CG hybrid is literally my raison d'etre. Like, I would die for Baby Yoda. I would kill for Baby Yoda. So adorable, so innocent, yet so powerful. We don't know the origin of this character. He's not actually an infant version of Yoda as I initially thought. But we don't know the origin of the character. We don't know the origin of his species and what happened to his species as well, considering that Yoda is considered one of the last of that species. Like, it's such an interesting backstory to get into in future seasons in terms of the character and his development, and his bond with the Mandalorian is just... I had no idea that it was going to be truly about this father-son bond between these two characters. And I think, again, I love the Mandalorian. I think he's a fantastic character. But considering that I had anticipated this series to be about this bounty hunter who's going to go out and start, you know, bounty hunting and killing people and collecting a reward and whatever, I expected that in terms of a Western take on Star Wars. But I did not expect a beautiful bond between this adoptive father brother and this incredibly, intoxicatingly adorable little creature that is Baby Yoda. And he is an example of a character where the whole world is crumbling around him, and it's kind of because of him, because everyone is after him, but you still want to protect him with your life because he's just so adorable. And when he's powerful, like, he can be really useful as well. Like, he pulls his own weight. I love this character. Truly, he's my favorite Star Wars character by far. I adore him. The next two are also pretty controversial because they are technically the main characters of their respective TV shows. Now, I tried to pick out characters that weren't the main character in their shows because I felt like, of course, you're going to have a main character that really shines amongst the rest when it comes to a TV show. If you're following them on their journey, if they are the character that goes through the most development, then it makes sense that they would be the MVP and that the show would crumble and fall apart without them. But in the case of these two especially, I just think that they are some of the most iconic main characters of any TV show ever, and they definitely elevate the shows that they are in to an extreme amount that they have to feature on this list. They just have to. It wouldn't be complete without them. So the first character that I'm talking about is Tommy Shelby from Peaky Blinders. And as I'm saying it, if you watch Peaky Blinders, you're probably smiling because, of course, if not for Tommy, who else is going to step up to the plate? Arthur? No. Not really. Michael? Don't make me laugh. Cillian Murphy's portrayal of this character is just incredible. First of all, completely underrated. He hasn't won an Emmy for this yet, which I think is insane, like actual insanity. Can we fix this immediately? And secondly, he is everything. Without him, there is no show. And even though it's not called the Thomas Shelby Show, the Peaky Blinders definitely take a back seat to his main story. And it's not just the case of him being the main character, it's a case of him just outshining everything else. And this is a great show, but I definitely think that the character of Tommy just elevates it from any old other, gangster related TV show out there. And the funny thing is, I recently watched Gangs of London, which stars Joe Cole, who portrayed John before he died. And one of the reasons why the actor left is because he was saying that this is the Tommy Shelby Show, which, yeah, it is. And Gangs of London very much focuses on more than one character, which I think is great. Like, good for Gangs of London to be doing that. But when you have a character like Tommy at the center of a story, especially when he's portrayed so brilliantly by an actor like Cillian Murphy, I think it's actually a positive to have one central focus because he is just such an incredible character. He really does stand levels above the rest of them. And whilst they are all fantastic actors and they're all great characters, he just makes the show. I don't know what to say. I'm mincing words here. Tommy Shelby is an incredible character. If you've seen the show, you'll agree. That's the end of the discussion. The second controversial figure who's also a main character and is also an MVP in his TV show is Geralt from The Witcher. Now, in the case of The Witcher, I don't actually love this show that much. I know it was this massive craze at the end of 2019. Everyone was losing their minds over The Witcher. I thought it was fine. It was confusing as hell. It was crazy and campy and weird, but also somewhat enjoyable in parts. I just think it was fine. But with the character of Geralt, portrayed by Henry Cavill, it just brought it so much higher than it actually was. Like, imagine if you were just stuck with the other characters. Oh, absolutely not. This is a show that I can say with 100% certainty that if Geralt was to ever die, for whatever reason, I would stop tuning in. And whilst I would be somewhat curious to see what his singing sidekick gets up to, it wouldn't be enough for me to watch an entire season without him. He just makes the show for me, and that's why he is more than deserving of a place on this list. This next MVP is Klaus / number 4 from the Umbrella Academy. Now, in my review of the Umbrella Academy from eons ago, aka last year, I barely managed to restrain myself from basically just talking about how much I love Klaus throughout the entire review because he is truly the character that makes it for me. He has so much more complexity in him than the other characters. His power of being able to communicate with the dead is just, this is such an interesting incarnation of that type of superpower which we've seen before. But the way that this show emphasizes the toll that this takes on this character, this person who is avoiding at all costs to communicate with those who have already passed to the next plane of existence. And in order to do so, he's allowing his brain to essentially rot, and he is constantly high. He's struggling struggling with addiction, he's struggling with not wanting to live in reality. But also there's this dichotomy that Robert Sheehan perfectly depicts of having this character who's also so joyous, and he's also the life of the party, and he seems like he's the most worry-free of them all. On the surface of things, he's nowhere near as depressed as Vanya is, even though he's got his own demons and he's going through his own issues. But it's only as the series progresses that you start to realize that this character is burdened with this gift, with this superpower, and he has so much pathos within him that Robert Sheehan again is just amazing at depicting, and also balancing with the lightheartedness and the false humor that this character projects to the rest of the world, and especially to his siblings, to the point where they don't understand him and they don't truly appreciate the suffering that he's going through. They only see him as the problematic addict. Not to mention that this character is technically a 2-for-1, because we also get the character of Ben through Klaus, who he can see and communicate with beyond the grave. Okay, so next up we have another Netflix character, and I'm hoping that you guys have caught this show because it is truly spectacular, and I'm a huge fan of the show as a whole, not just the character in particular, but I do think that he takes the cake in terms of the category of character that he fulfills. I am talking about Eric Effiong from Sex Education. What a phenomenal best friend character. The whole gay best friend trope is so tired, it is so outdated, but the writing of this character just elevates and innovates this kind of role to make him this unique, hilarious, iconic character within Sex Education that really does steal a lot of the scenes that he has with the main guy, Otis. Now, of course, it's not just the writing that's important in bringing this character to life. We have the amazing performance by the actor whose name escapes me, but I will write it down here because he deserves the respect. God damn it, he is incredible in this role. Like I said, when you look at it at face value, he seems like the typical gay best friend, although technically usually we see the gay best friend for a female main character, so I think it's interesting to see it for a male main character, because there's always this misconception that if you have a gay best friend in a TV show that he's going to fall in love with his best friend, and you know, it's going to become a whole unrequited love storyline. But we never see that here, because we're in 2020 or 2019 and we can do better, and I'm glad that Sex Education knows that we can do better, because Eric Effiong has his own storylines, his own issues separate from Otis, and I fully appreciate that about the character. I think it helps create a very well-rounded character that you can honestly follow along his journey alone, separate from the main character of the show. I just love how this character is so unapologetically himself. He's black and he embraces his African heritage. He embraces his family, even though they can be a bit embarrassing sometimes, but he has that connection with his family. And I like that there is somewhat of a tension at the beginning, but by the end of this series, at least up until season 2, we see that his family just fully accept him and want the best for him, to the point where they embrace Adam, which is just so adorable. That poor Adam, who's just so miserable. He's up there with Connor from How to Get Away with Murder in terms of just miserable, depressed characters, man, that you still root for at the end of the day. And finally, on my list of MVP characters, this is perhaps the most controversial. You guys can let me know if you violently disagree with this. But my final pick for this list is Rick from Rick and Morty. Now look, of course I love the character of Morty. Of course I think he's a fantastic character, and I think that without him the show would be completely different. He's just such a unique character in the way that he's kind of pathetic and helpless, but at the same time he has this heart of gold. But that heart of gold is also starting to be shadowed by the cynicism of Rick and his influence, and that's a very interesting development that we're starting to see from this character, albeit it's very slow. I very much appreciate all of that about the character of Morty. This is not to degrade him whatsoever, but hear me out. Rick delivers some of the best one-liners, some of the most iconic moments in all of Rick and Morty, actually in all of in all of TV show history. Just period. Truly, I don't even know what to say. I'm speechless. this character is just truly incredible. The way that he projects his cynicism, his apathy, his nihilism, like it's just incredible to watch him go through these wondrous adventures and just have the blankest of faces. Like it doesn't faze him whatsoever. He doesn't get that sense of wonder the way that Morty does when they're going on these adventures. To him, it's just any old other Thursday. Nothing really means anything to him because he has knowledge of the universe that no one could even come close to. And as a result, he seems to be constantly in a state of inebriation, because how else is he gonna feel anything? He's just numb. He's numb to the wonder of this universe. And that is the beauty of Rick and Morty, is that it's a show about these crazy adventures. And instead of having this central character who's just wowed by everything and it fully appreciates the wonder in everything, like you would see in Adventure Time, for example, you have the character of Rick who's just like, yeah, you know, whatever. Oh, this guy has 9 heads, I'm gonna shoot them all. Like, he just doesn't care, or at least he doesn't seem to care. But again, there is that underlying character development that's happening where he's becoming more connected to his grandson. They seem to be more in line with one another and seem to understand each other better, at least much better than they did in season 1. So yeah, I strongly believe that Rick is the MVP of Rick and Morty. Like I said, I do appreciate the character of Morty, but Rick is just, he's on another level. So that's it from me. Now that I told you guys my list of 10 MVP TV show characters, at least out of the shows that I watch, it's time for you guys to let me know what your MVP characters are down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe so you can catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.